So let's jump right in and talk about stress. What do you think of when you hear the term stress? Did you know that there is actually two different types of stress? One of them is actually positive for us, or our body is meant to handle, and the other one is something of our own making and our own kind of lifestyle choices. So the first type that I'm going to talk about is acute stress. Acute stress is short-term stress. There's really a trigger that causes a stress response in our bodies. So think about something like a last-minute call or ask from your boss if you get stuck in a traffic jam. So something along those lines would be considered acute stress. And during acute stress, you start to notice that your heart rate might raise a little bit, your blood pressure starts to increase, your muscles might begin to tense, and this all goes back to our ancestors and our body's innate response to stress. And doctors actually coin this type of stress and our body's response to acute stress as resilience. And resilience is a good thing. And our body's response to acute stress was meant to save us, whether we were running away from a tiger or from a saber-toothed tiger when our ancestors were trying to survive. Nowadays, though, our acute stress has started to shift and move into the second type of stress, which is chronic stress. Chronic stress is long-term stress that settles in your system due to a long amount of stressful triggers or stressful periods in your life, and you not really taking the time to reset your system and bring it back down. So what do I mean by that? Chronic stress symptoms as well as acute stress symptoms are mainly the same. So you have your elevated heart rate, you have your elevated blood pressure, you have your muscle tension, you might start to sweat. Now, all of these things in short term are okay. Again, they're meant to help us build resilience and help us stay safe. Now, over the long term, so when we start to get into chronic stress, we start to notice that our normal levels of blood pressure, our normal heart rate, these things start to rise and find a new normal when you're in a chronic state of stress. And what that means is your body has to constantly work harder to keep it at that resting or normal state. So this is why when we are in a chronic state of stress, you might notice you have a lot of extra inflammation in your body. You'll notice that your heart rate, beats a little bit faster. You might feel the pitter patter a little bit more than you used to. And over the long run, this can lead to depression, heart disease, diabetes. A lot of these chronic illnesses that we hear about can stem from chronic stress and that chronic amount of elevated heart rate, chronic amount of elevated blood pressure, and that chronic amount of just tension in your body. So, to do a quick recap, we talked about acute stress as well as chronic stress today. Acute stress is our body's way of keeping us safe. This is what doctors and researchers call resilience. It's our way of bouncing back when you get an angry email from someone, you get that late night call from your boss. And again, acute stress isn't necessarily a bad thing. Now moving into our chronic stress is when we move into a longer term stress. And this is what really puts, no pun intended, a lot of extra stress on our body. And you may notice inflammation in your body, your heart rate stays elevated. You bring your body to a new normal. when you hit or when you're in this chronic stress or chronic state. And our goal, how do we fix it, which is of course why you are here in Ace Your Stress, but we start to build lifestyle habits that can help us react to this acute stress in a positive way so we don't get to that chronic stress state.